So, when you think about academic cheating, what comes to mind? Probably a high schooler, maybe a college student cramming for an exam, right? Well, what if I told you the whole thing gets started way earlier than that? Let's dig into the surprising start of academic cheating.
Get this, 1 in 4.
That's how many elementary school students, elementary, said they've cheated in a recent study. We're not talking about teenagers here. We're talking about kids, some as young as second grade. It's kind of wild when you think about it.
And that's the big question, isn't it? Why does it all start so early? This is exactly what a group of researchers wanted to figure out. Okay, so to get to the bottom of this, we first have to look at where this statistic even comes from. It's pretty unexpected.
Yeah, this isn't just some random number pulled out of thin air. It comes from a real study, a pretty serious one actually, from researchers at Hangzhou Normal University and the University of Toronto. They really wanted to get to the root of this behavior.
And here's where it gets really interesting. You'd think, right, that as kids get older and the schoolwork gets harder, the cheating would go up. But nope, the study found the rate was basically the same for second, fourth, and sixth graders. So it's not a problem that's getting worse, it's just consistently there.
That consistency is what makes the why question so crucial. If it's not just about age, then what is going on? What are the real drivers behind this?
So the researchers decided to flip the script. Instead of just asking, why are some kids cheating, they asked, what's protecting the other 75%? They zeroed in on two key internal traits to see if that's where the answer was.
But before we get to what they found, it's important to know how they did this. So let's take a quick look at the study's blueprint.
Okay, so who are they looking at? The study had 469 students, second, fourth, and sixth graders from a public school in eastern China. And to be specific, these were Han Chinese kids from middle-class families. That context is pretty important for understanding the results.
And how'd they get their info? It was pretty straightforward, really. The students just filled out a survey that was designed for their age group. It asked them about their own behavior, if they'd ever cheated, but also about what they believed, like how wrong did they think cheating was, and how did they deal with really tough schoolwork.
All right, so now we get to the good stuff, the findings. It turns out those protective factors they were looking for really boiled down to two things: a kid's own moral compass and their persistence.
So let's break that down. Moral judgment, that's just their internal sense of right and wrong, that little voice inside. And persistence, it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's that grit, that drive to keep going when an assignment gets really hard.
And the first big takeaway was super clear. The researchers found that kids who genuinely believed cheating was morally wrong, well, they just didn't do it as much. That personal moral compass was a really powerful guide.
And that's where persistence comes in. It's like a quiet superpower. It gives a child another path to take. When they get stuck on a problem, a kid with persistence thinks, okay, I'll try this another way. But a kid without it might just look for a shortcut.
Now, the study also looked at the flip side. What beliefs might actually encourage cheating? And a big one was the classic, everyone else is doing it idea.
See, when a kid starts to think that cheating is just normal, that it's happening all around them, it can start to weaken their own moral judgment, which, you guessed it, makes them more likely to cheat themselves. The barrier just gets a whole lot lower. But here's a really surprising twist. Even though the belief that other kids were cheating was a factor, actual peer pressure from friends, it mattered a lot less than you'd expect. For these younger students, their own personal values, that internal moral compass, was a way stronger predictor of what they'd do.
So what do we do with all this information? What does it mean for parents, for teachers? Let's talk about how we can actually use this to encourage academic integrity right from the start.
The main takeaway here is actually pretty hopeful, because if cheating can start this early, it means the foundations of integrity, all those good skills and values that prevented, can be built just as early too. And the study gives us a pretty clear roadmap. First, just start talking about honesty and what's fair early and often. Second, we got to praise the effort, not just the perfect score. And third, when a kid says, I'm stuck or I can't do this, that's the moment. That's our cue to step in and help them build that persistence muscle.
So it all leaves us with one big question to think about. It's not just about stopping a bad habit, right? It's about building up good ones. So how can we help our kids see that their own moral compass and their ability to stick with a problem are actually their greatest strengths?
Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. By getting a handle on where this all starts, we're in a much better position to give kids the tools they really need to succeed with integrity.